All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today with today's panel discussion. I want to thank everyone for joining us as we discuss military transitions with several of our panelists today. Before we get started, I wanted to just share a little note about veteran transitions. It's been almost 2 decades, since I left the Navy in 2005 and joined McKinstry, and we focus a lot on helping our community, and in particular veterans, veteran families, and those that support veterans in their transition to civilian careers for a couple of different reasons. One in particular, the transition from the military to civilian life is extremely disorienting. One thing I heard recently that really struck a chord for me is the transition process is a lonely process. There's nobody in the military that's done the transition. So a lot of times it feels like you're on your own. It's awesome to see a lot of the support organizations and structures that are out there that are continuing to help veterans make that transition and for their families too. The military career itself is very different as well. You'll hear from our panelists today and some of their own experiences. It's an awesome experience. It's awesome to be part of something bigger than yourself, to be part of serving our country and protecting our freedoms. At the same time, you're forward deployed, you're away from family, you're working 24/7 in a lot of different capacities. You're gone from home for weeks on end, if not months. And then, whether it be several years or a career that you had in the military, when you go to make that change, it's a big change. It's a lifestyle change for our veterans. And so as we talk today, I want to say thank you to all those that have served our country and those that are part of families and friends and those that have helped our other veterans. It's a very special time of year for us as we get ready to celebrate Veterans Day, and really looking forward to our panel discussion coming up. So with that, I want to cover a couple details related to today's panel. First is the event will be recorded and available on BlueNet afterwards. All of the attendees on the call today are going to have be muted with cameras off so that we can focus on our panelists and the discussion that's going on. And I do encourage everyone to use the Q&A function. Please submit your questions, and we'll have time at the end that our moderators will be able to review those questions, and time permitting, we'll have further discussion based on your questions that you have for our panelists. So for today's panel, it's my pleasure to introduce Andy and John, both military veterans themselves, having served in the Navy. Andy and John, I appreciate your service, and thank you for, in particular, for your leadership for our Alliance. It's special for me to be here today as an executive sponsor. I worked with you and many others as we were launching the Veterans Alliance a few years ago, and to continue to see your leadership and the volunteers that are part of this alliance making a big difference for veterans, not just at McKinstry, but out in the civilian workforce in general, making that transition. Awesome to see, and thank you for your time today too.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. All right. Well, again, I'll echo Jesse's appreciation for everybody joining the call today and supporting the Veterans Alliance and all the alliances throughout the years, really, but especially for us during this time in the month of November, is super important to us, like Jesse said. So I want to just take a couple minutes to tell you about the Veterans Alliance before we get into our panel. Again, my name is John Livingston. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Veterans Alliance and working for McKinstry in our service line of business. And really, our approach and the mission of the Veterans Alliance is to engage the veteran community to assist and support that transition from military to civilian careers, like Jesse was talking about. It's one of the major milestones of anybody really separating from the military to find meaningful employment and purpose following that service to country. So we really aspire to establish a culture where veterans are valued and supported here at McKinstry. Our key objective of increasing hiring and retention of veterans, along with improved career growth and support for veterans that are transitioning into civilian life, is one of our key metrics and cornerstones, and why we do a lot of the things we do. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a call out for our community service initiatives and all the great work that the Alliance does. We believe in giving back to veterans and the communities that have supported them throughout their career. Our outreach programs provide veterans and allies both with opportunities to engage in meaningful volunteer work. And that helps to build new skills and connections while making a positive impact both at the company and in the community. So if you're interested in joining the Alliance, I would really encourage you to ping either me or Andy on Teams. Andy Morgan's email is there displayed on the screen. If you are so inclined to support the work that we do or any of the alliances in general, but specifically us, because I'll be a little biased here, please reach out and inquire about joining the Alliance and supporting some of the work we do. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Andy and our fine panelists today, and have a great time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody that's joined this call to talk more about successful transitions for veterans from the military to the civilian workforce in celebration of Veterans Day. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that military spouses were a part of that group. It's something that, often maybe doesn't get thought about a little bit, but as military members move from place to place, sometimes every year, sometimes every 2 years, you can imagine what that's like. If you're a military spouse, you're trying to establish yourself in an industry or in a career. And so it's something that I think we should highlight here. We talk with veterans here at McKinstry and that we're going to talk about here, and also with that. As you can see on the screen here. I've been here at McKinstry for about 5 years, and I'm grateful to have been here, and I'm grateful to be moderating this discussion. It's kind of a culmination of one of my passions is to help people transition from military to civilian and to civilian career, and just trying to knock down those barriers that we all kind of have, but it's kind of a unique thing being in the military. I was in for 23 years, and it was tough. And I look back on now, some lessons learned, and try to help other people kind of make it a little bit more palatable and manageable as they can help. So joining us for our panel discussion today is Whitney Danielson, Program Manager in our Technical Services Group out of Oregon. Cameron Turner, a Senior Facility Operations Consultant with Technical Services. He's down in the Southeast. And Monica McNeil, a Program Manager with Fort Black, partner of ours. So just want to join them in the discussion here. They're going to be our panel today. I'll be moderating. It's going to be great. Hey, it's nice to see all of you again. Thanks for joining me today to talk about veteran transitions to the civilian workforce. And appreciate your, kind of your time here. First thing I'd like to do is just go around and share a bit about your background and what led you to join or work with the military. So I'll start with you, Cameron. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Hello, everyone. My name's Cameron Turner. I'm a Senior Facility Operations Consultant here at McKinstry with the National Tech Services team. I've been here for almost 2 years now. A little bit about my military background. I did a little over a decade, started out as a military police officer and as an enlisted, and went all the way and transitioned into the engineer corps as an officer, where I ultimately separated as a captain. And my experiences in the military go from anywhere from dealing with combat units to construction management, and I finished up with facility management down in up at Fort Lewis, Washington. So what led me to join the military, it's kind of a compilation of different things. I come from a family of veterans where every male in my family on both sides for my parents have served in some form or fashion, whether it's 4 years or 20 years. And so from an early age, I kind of felt that call to join and serve. And as I got a little older, I was more drawn to that military career to kind of gain some of those skills, those valuable skills that you get. And I really want to see the world. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Whitney, what about you? I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, so Whitney Danielson.
Happens to all of us.
I am a program manager for tech service out of Oregon, like Andy said. I've been with McKinstry for about 18 months, and I'm coming up on my 10 years of being in the military. So I'm still an active reservist. So I did 8 years active and then switched over to the reserves. And my story is a little bit different than Cameron's, to the point that I am actually one of the very first ones to serve in my family at all. And my little sister kind of was the first one. So I was going to college, my little sister joined. She said, "Hey, then the Navy's going to pay for my education." And I said, "That sounds really cool," because I was going to college and swimming in student loan debt already. So I joined the Navy, and I was a nuclear machinist mate. And then I actually was one of the very first women to ever get picked up to be an enlisted sailor on submarines. So I had a very interesting experience. It was challenging, it was rewarding, but overall, I would say, kind of like what Cameron said, is it really helped to hone some soft skills that you can really only find in those high stress, high intensity, very challenging leadership positions that a lot of people in the military get the opportunity to grow into.
That's amazing. I knew that you served on submarines. I was on submarines for a very long time, and just to hear a story, or to hear you talk about how you were one of the first women to be on submarines, it's awesome. I think it's great, and it honestly warms my
Thank
heart
you.
that you had that opportunity. So anyway, so thanks so much, Whitney. Monica, you're our I guess I'll call it the McKinstry for Black kind of relationship. Tell us about a little bit about how you started working with the military and your story.
Okay. I'm a daughter of an Army vet, and he served between Korea and I guess Vietnam. He never saw active duty or overseas. So we lived in Minnesota, and then my brother went on to serve 8 years in the Air Force and loved his job. He did Air Force One. And then somewhere in my story, I did become a military spouse. Now I'd be that spouse. And we had a child, Eric. Eric went on to be a 4th-generation Marine, and he enlisted right out of high school. And this was in the height of the war. So on October 28th, 2009, he left for Afghanistan and then was killed in February of 2010 in Marja and Helmand Providence at 19. And so he had left me this envelope just in case something happened, and it kind of changed my complete corporate career. Everything I was doing, my life was turned upside down, but I have found so much peace and love working with all of you. So thank you for allowing me, and I'm very humbled to be part of this panel today. So thank you for your service and your family service.
Yeah, well, thank you for your family service. And, again, my heart goes out to you. And being a Gold Star mom we appreciate your family's sacrifice. I know that the country does, and I'm sorry for it.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Well, that's like, so we've gone around the room. We all kind of know each other. We understand our connection to the military and things, and we'll kind of dive in here. I kind of gauge this next question to Whitney and Cameron. What really brought you? What made you decide to kind of transition out of the military? And then specifically, what brought you to McKinstry? I'll start maybe with Whitney this time.
Yeah. So I was coming up on the end of my active duty contract. Like I said, I was just over 8 years, and I had just recently had my daughter, and I knew that I did not want to go back on deployment. Deployments on submarines were, 6 to 9 months under the water with no communication to your family, very limited emails, and having a 1-year-old at home, it just wasn't time I was willing to miss, essentially. So then when I decided to get out, it was important to me to find a place that I could have that work-life balance and to be able to really enjoy my daughter's first few years. And so that was something that was, a top thing that a company had to have in order for me to go work for them. So then what brought me to McKinstry is I was actually at a job fair, and I had talked to a bunch of different booths and a bunch of different people, and nobody had really sparked that, like, this is a good company, feeling inside of me. I got a lot of like, wow, this is going to pay a lot. And that was pretty cool, but it didn't have the warm and fuzzy, so to say, that I would be able to have that time with my kid. And then I walked past the McKinstry booth, and John Livingston, who we met earlier on this call, was actually a previous chief on my submarine. And so him and I had worked together a lot, and he just happened to be at that job fair. And so I heard my name being called, and I whipped around, and I did not recognize him at all. He had this beard and a ponytail, and I was like, who is this person? But then we were able to reconnect, and he said, you know, he kind of ushered me over and he was like, come here, I want to tell you about my company because I love working for McKinstry. And I was like, well, if he feels that strongly that this is a good place, it's worth, you know, hearing him out.
Awesome.
So then I talked to him, I interviewed with a few different people. I really got to kind of research and dive into McKinstry's values and the projects that they lead. And I knew that the people-centered culture and just the values that were emanated from the stories, the work, the people, that this was a place that I wanted to work at. And so that's why I chose McKinstry.
Awesome. Super cool story. Yeah, like the veteran that's out for a little while, you know, somebody that gets out for a little while, they end up looking a lot different. I still don't have hair, but I did grow a beard. So, you know, that's the thing that didn't change for me. Cameron, what about you? What you know, how would you answer that?
Well, kind of similar to Whitney over there, but my decision was also driven by family. And I feel like that's a majority of people I know, that's kind of what drew them out too. But I kind of got to a point in my career, I was halfway through. I just did over a decade. Some people would call that our halfway mark. And I just felt like it was time. You know, I had a 1-year-old at this point, and I just wanted him to be closer to family and just have a more stable lifestyle. And I don't know if he's on here or not, but I have a buddy here who works at McKinstry named Colton Juliana. And him and I have been following the same career our whole time in the military. And I probably saw him more than I did my own family for about 5 years there. But that's ultimately what drove me to want to get out. And it's a very tough decision, as for most of us, regardless, but we try and make the right decisions for that time. And also I felt like I was at a point in my career where the skills that I learned in the military would probably best translate over, or I was at a point where it would flow better into the civilian workforce, in my opinion. So what led me to McKinstry is, I think we'll kind of harp on it a little later, or we'll kind of talk to that, but I took part in some programs, and I wound up doing some networking, and I got on a webinar with McKinstry. I was just an attendee, just like today, and I was listening in. I got to hear a lot of veterans talk about their experiences in the transition process and their experiences here at McKinstry. And I knew from the first time I heard it that this is a place I wanted to be. It kind of, you could tell people here cared about the people, and that's something I really resonate with from the Army. So yeah, I knew I was going to do whatever it took to get here. So
Awesome. Well, that's I mean, it's good to hear. My story is very similar to the two of you's story. And you know, I think it makes me think to ask Monica this question, that like, what are you seeing right now with trends? What are the factors that are driving people to choose to transition out of the military? Whether it, you know, we know the retirement thing, like people get out to the 20 and the beyond time, but how about that inside range there? What are the trends that you're seeing out there in the transition space?
So I'll just clarify, I also teach TAP. I'm a TAP instructor, so I get to see pretty much everyone here on the West Coast, not just Washington. So I'm with a lot of veterans, soon to be veterans, every week. And I would say both of you really hit it. Life balance is really important. People also get tired of moving, traveling, being away from their family. That's a real one. And then the other one, I think for many of them, they kind of have this awakening, maybe straight from high school, they went into the service, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I'm 24 and I'm not going to do this forever. Or they maybe have now a plan, or they've networked, they've experienced something going, I really like being an HVAC in the Navy, but man, I've done some homework, and if that's $100,000 job today, or whatever. So I think there's a little bit of the timeline. So even if you went the officer route, I mean, you're still pretty young after, 4 years and you start evaluating life. So I would say that is still the biggest things that I see. And of course you have, you're separating people and you have, those could be medically discharged, et cetera. But I would say people are really finding what their values are. And maybe as my son was 17 when he went in, and, he was young, no kids, no wife, nothing. And he thought the whole world was in front of him. What he would have thought 5 years later, more like, wow, I'd like to get married or I'd like to have a family. So I think that you both speak to that exactly the same.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, just to I'd like to talk a little bit about what trends are you seeing with military spouses? Like, this is something that we talked about in the beginning, and it's not, they're a part of the veteran team. You know what I mean? Like whether they're serving at home while the service members are out doing the great work that Whitney and Cameron did while they're deployed, right? What are you seeing with them with regards to the trends and the experiences that they're having?
Yeah, well, one, there's a lot more companies focusing on hiring mil spouses, even active duty, understanding they might be relocating. How do they redesign that job to be maybe a remote position? Or is there another sister location if you guys are across the nation? Is there another office this person could go to? And I think also the workforce today, they're understanding people having gaps of employment. In my era, if I had taken 3 months off and didn't have something on my job, they would have thought I was a problem. Today, it's more like personal development. So the military spouse and all the resources that are put towards military spouses, even the Department of Labor, military spouses can take all the same classes their spouse is taking, and we also have them all online. And many of the other nonprofits like 4Block has added, mil spouse program. So it's, once again, you know what you know, but go and find out more because they're out there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's always been something that, sometimes you don't connect, right? Like you've got somebody that's been through college, and has these professional certifications, but they're having to uproot themselves every so often to follow the service member around to the new duty station. And it's really tough on service members and their families because sometimes they have to make decisions where they divide, right? Where you have what we call a geographic bachelor or a geographically disparate situation where the service member will serve in a particular location and the family will stay in a particular location, which is always tough on families. It doesn't matter if you're in the military or if you're not. That's a tough situation. And so I appreciate you talking about it because I think it's something important we can highlight. So it leads me to my next question. What would you say is the number one challenge facing veterans in making the transition to civilian jobs? And I'll start with Monica. What's the number one challenge you see facing veterans as they make that transition to civilian jobs?
Can I give you a quick 5? One,
yeah, sure.
One, they got to accept help and they got to want to get help. It's okay. You don't know everything. Just ask for some help. Also, just the fact of their timeline. Sometimes the timeline is out of your control. So you don't have that long runway to actually do a lot of things that you would have liked to have done. Skill Bridge, 4Block, whatever the case may be. There is also, I wrote down, maximize your resources. There's over 30,000 resources out there. Learn how to Google, if nothing else, is what I tell my classes. They're out there. Also, I really think that you need to do informational interviews. Just talk to people for 15 minutes and all of a sudden it might just spark something. So I think I said all 5. So I quickly did that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Those are great. Whitney, what do you think? Like, what's the number one challenge facing veterans in making that transition? You could talk to yours or what you think it is for sure.
Yeah, so I think that this applies to me and I think to every other vet out there. And it's not so much about like getting into a civilian job as it is just the hardest thing of the transition. And for me, I think that one of the biggest challenges is as you leave the military, you're having a complete loss of and a huge change in identity. So something that has been, all consuming for however long you've been in being a full-time service member, and then all of a sudden you have like your free agency back that you know didn't really have control over, and that identity shift is a lot deeper and a lot larger than most people really realize. And as I was thinking about this and how to like convey that, one of the examples that came to mind was like even in the name that you have been referred to and called, whether it was by your last name or by like your rank and your title, that all of a sudden you show up into a new place where people are using your first names again. And for me, I didn't even respond immediately, because I was like, that's, you know, I've been Danielson for 10 years, and now people are calling me by like the name that only your friends and family really use. And so it was just, it's hard to change who you are kind of fundamentally to become this new person. And it's a very big shift.
That's a very unique perspective, and I wholeheartedly agree. It was very difficult for people. I'm a weird one. So my real first name is Scott, but my friends and family call me Andy, and that's what I go by here at work. You know, that's what I want to be called, right? And so I always had the thing in the military where if somebody talks to me and says, "Can I speak to Scott?" I know that they don't know me. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. I'm like, okay, you don't know me. All right, cool. That's good. That's a great comment. What about you, Cameron?
Yeah, those are some really good points. Yeah, in my opinion, I think one of the biggest challenges that veterans can face coming out is translating your military skills and experiences into terminology that civilian careers would understand. I found this kind of difficult, and I know a lot of friends who have gotten out who can find that very hard to do. And the military equips us with a lot of these critical soft skills and stuff, and we have a lot of good technical skills too that they can be really hard to convey in a way that resonates with civilian employees. So for like, I'll give you an example. So in the Army, we have logistics role. This might be, they might be responsible for coordinating movements of supplies or managing inventories or ensuring the right resources are available at the right time, something like that. And this role might, I don't know, directly aligned with like a civilian supply chain or operations manager role or something like that. But on paper, it can be really hard for a service member to kind of get that full scope of their responsibilities and put it down in a language that translates well. And so I think without having proper guidance from somebody who's in the civilian role or in the civilian workforce already, a lot of those critical skills and impactful skills can get lost in translation. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
I do actually have one more that
Sure. Yeah, fire it up. Throw it out there.
Which was really weird for me is kind of adapting from like a very hierarchical chain of command to a more collaborative environment where we can, it's maybe not so defined in the civilian workforce. And so that can be quite an adjustment, but those are my two big ones.
Okay, that's awesome. And I mean, I would resonate that I've felt the pressure in all those environments, you know, the same when I transitioned out of the military. And people like Monica at the TAP program try to help us beginning. And I think Monica made a great point. Her number one thing was ask for help. You know, we got to a point in our careers, 10 years, Cameron, me, 23 years, like we thought we knew what we were doing. You know what I mean? We were excelling in our roles. I mean, I know that the two of you and all the people that we have here at McKinstry were top performers in the military. And so it's very difficult for us to look at something and not know what to do, right? And need that help and ask for that help and then be able to kind of take it in and be able to kind of push it back out in a way that makes sense. And so the cool part is that veterans were really great at learning, right? Like we are lifelong learners. We've had to learn a new job every time we got put in it. We didn't have the experience necessary to be the expert at it yet. But over that period of time on our tour, we became those experts, right? In that job or that role that we had. And then it was time for them to push us into another growth role for that next transition, right? So I think all the things you guys said here were great. It was awesome. Great conversation. So talking about transition and just in general, like what programs did you participate in as you transitioned out? what were effective at helping you transition out of the military. And maybe I'll start with Cameron on this one.
Yeah. So as all service members do, I participated in TAP, which gives you that basic foundation. Or it gave me that basic foundation for my transition. It's just a lot. For me, there were online courses at the time, and I had a 1-day in person where we spent like 5 hours kind of going over everything, and it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. So if you don't ask for help or you don't know where to start, it can be a lot. And thankfully that we do have a lot of those external resources and organizations who are out there looking after us. And I know many people join the military coming out of high school. And so I think the lifestyle change can be very difficult. And without these other resources and organizations, it can be very tough. But I participated in a program called Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program with Whitney. They understand all these challenges, and through this program, I was able to connect with mentors, and they helped me translate those military skills, like I was talking about, into to terms civilians employees understand. And they kind of guided me through the resume building, processing, networking, interviewing, and ultimately led here. So
awesome. What about you, Whitney?
Yeah, so I participated in a lot of the same programs that Cam was talking about, the most notable one being the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship Program. But another really great one that I participated in that I always recommend to like newly transitioning vets, it's called, the company is a nonprofit called Candorful, and they do interview prep for veterans. So I thought it was a really helpful experience where I got really good feedback from how to successfully navigate interviews in the civilian world, all the way to like actually doing practice and mock interviews, where I was just set up in an experience where I could practice with business professionals and people who, are in the corporate world who do hire, who are volunteering their time and their expertise to help you learn how to translate those stories into something they can understand, and help you learn how to talk about your experiences and your skills in a way that a hiring manager can understand. And so I thought that hands-on practice and immediate feedback was extremely valuable.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard of that one. That one wasn't around when I was growing up, I don't think, as they say in the business. But there's been some other ones out there too. A perfect example is Monica's 4-block program. That's helpful. It has a lot of these things that we're talking about: interview prep, resume building, how to network, and do those things. And it's a very, it's a great curriculum to talk about here. So that's one. And then one that I did that's a separate one from that you guys haven't mentioned yet, but both of those are great. Definitely participated in the Hiring Our Heroes program, which was very helpful to me and got me to where I'm at today in McKinstry. Another one that I participated in that I thought was very helpful was American Corporate Partners, ACP. They get a mentor with you, someone in the business environment. It's a 12-month long thing of mentorship, and it has a curriculum, and you can meet as really as frequent as you want. It's usually no more than about twice a month. And you have these, you kind of progress through like where you're at and where you're headed. And it's another connection point with someone that's looking to spend time with you and help you develop your skills to be able to transition into the civilian workforce as a, interview prep, looking at job opportunities and figuring out how your skills aligned, and even a network connection, right? Like the people that we meet through these programs are an opportunity in and of itself. And as we hear at McKinstry, you start developing your Rolodex of people, right? That you can call and say, hey, I have this, I'm whether it's an opportunity for a job or it's a technical opportunity. In other words, like it might be something related to work. I've called Whitney a number of times about work stuff. And we're both veterans. We've talked in that way. And Cameron and I have talked about projects that I've worked on in the past as he's working on work. So I think it's kind of all related. It's that networking piece. And so American Corporate Partners was really great for me as well. And I know Monica's program does a lot of great stuff for veterans as they're transitioning out there. Monica, you want to give like a short snippet on the 4-block program and talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a volunteer at 4-block. I used to be their national ops person. So it's 10 weeks in-person class here in the Seattle market. And we go to a variety of different companies, different interests. They're not all what I call the big shiny companies, because there's great companies out there that people don't know about. But we go after really like the whole curriculum of what you need. And it's really making your network. And I like to always say your network is your net worth. So Mike Abrams founded this, and he is really helping the post 9/11 veterans. So it's free, it's fabulous. And there's about 30,000 resources out there for transitioning veterans. There's just so many of them, but Hiring Heroes, hands down. There's the Commit Foundation, which is fabulous. If you're part of the Honor Foundation, which is separate group. And then there's every state, like Texas has the Texas Veteran Roundtable. They do things. I mean, there is a program in every state, especially where there's an installation, you'll find more and more of those programs. So it's all out there. It's, once again, your timeline. Can you squeeze it all in? Will your command let you have some time off to do a skill bridge? But, and then I'm a big mentor lover, and I think you've got to get a mentor. Many of you have mentored while you're in the military, while you were job seeking. I put mentoring in my top 5 that you need to find a mentor, because you're going to have some high highs and some low lows. So lots of great mentoring programs out there. I actually have done ACP now for 7 years, and it has just been fabulous. So lots of stuff.
It's really nice. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all that information, Monica. I really appreciate it. It's, we got lucky. Monica's a part of our team here talking about the panel, but she's so connected in that transition space that she understands a lot of these things that, where we may do particular programs, she's seeing a larger piece of the pie. So to hear your perspective is awesome. Thank you, Monica.
Hey, Andy, can we throw into that a lot of these programs look for volunteers, and you don't have to be a veteran to volunteer. So like the one that I spoke to, Canterful, and I know that, ACP is the same. It's just people who want to take their time out of their everyday to go help some veterans. And most of it is all just on volunteers. So there's a small plug for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for talking about it. Yeah, that's a great way to, if you want to get involved in supporting veterans as they transition, look at these different programs, find what aligns for your particular, what's convenient for you, that aligns with your values, and get out there and see how you can integrate that way. One that McKinstry does quite a bit, we participate in the Skill Bridge program, Hiring Our Heroes through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. The VA says approximately 200,000 people every year are transitioning, out of the military. And Syracuse University said that almost half of the recently separated veterans only stay in their first job post-military, for less than 12 months, which is not uncommon. I think I've seen quite a bit of that. People think that they want something in particular, and then they change their mind, or it's not the right fit, right? So that can happen sometimes. And so that's it's hard to find the right work that aligns with your military training and experience. And sometimes, we've talked about that. That's the tricky spot. And I think in some places where people are more focused on some of the, like where Whitney had mentioned, it felt good. It felt like a place where I would be able to come in and really learn, and then start to leverage my skills and experience. I mean, sometimes those can be real big winners. And I think at McKinstry, we have an environment that really suits that particular thing. McKinstry's veteran tenure right now is much better than, people when they arrive, we have a much better than that Syracuse statistic of 12 months. We can ask Isaac Phones, who's one of our talent acquisitions partners, and he is a veteran as well. We can have him drum up some statistics for us if we want, but it's better than 12 months. And it's really a credit to our culture, our values, and the meaning and purpose of the work that we do, and it really aligns with our previous experiences. And so currently right now at McKinstry, veterans comprise about 8.5% of the McKinstry staff, which is awesome. And it represents all geographies across our company and all lines of businesses. So you are very likely, if you're listening to this conversation that we're having, you're rubbing elbows with a veteran. If you're not rubbing elbows with myself, Whitney, or Cameron, there's a veteran around you that you can talk to and discuss, experiences or what they think about things, I guess. Or maybe you can talk about an Army-Navy football game and they'll get excited about it. I don't know. We can, maybe the Air Force as well can get involved. But we are participating in 3 different kind of military communities that help veterans. It's Hiring Our Heroes, 4 Block with Monica's company there, and also the Honor Foundation. That's another program that we're going to participate in. It's kind of a newer partner to us. But Mike Scouten, if you know Mike Scouten, he's at our company and he's kind of leading the charge on that. And we're excited about it. It's going to be great. So, and that the Honor Foundation it surrounds special forces veterans that are transitioning out. They kind of specialize in that group, and we're looking forward to it. So, since we first started participating in Hiring Our Heroes back in 2016, which is quite a while ago, we've had more than 70 fellows and hired 56 of them. So I think that's just a testament to our commitment to the program. And, I think all 3 of us sitting here on this panel, we're all part of the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship. So I just want to say thank you to McKinstry, and, really just thank you to everybody for being a part of that particular program and supporting veterans transitioning out. So that was my, I guess I got a shameless plug for a little while there. I got to do the talent acquisition data and how we participate in those things, which was great. And so that kind of leads me to the next question that I have is this is kind of more directed towards Cameron and Whitney, but what experiences best supported or enabled your transition? What was man, that was good. And we might have talked about it a little bit already. I think Whitney, you mentioned Candorful, right? That was good. But is there something else maybe that you could say was up near the top there?
Yeah, I would say honestly for me, the experience of finding a veterans community was really the most helpful. I found, the Veterans Alliance at McKinstry pretty quickly, and just being surrounded by this wealth of knowledge from a community of people who've been through exactly what I'm going through, as well as, all of the people who I had maintained contact with through my personal friends and who were also vets, that it was just a ton of support, a lot of guidance, a lot of mentorship that I was offered during my transition. And even now, 18 months out, I'm still those networking connections. And I had a buddy the other day that hit me up and said, "Hey, did you know that you're eligible for life insurance through the VA?" Because him and I were both on submarines. And so he had just found out and wanted to tell me about it, to just share that information. And it's that community that I thought was really the most enabling in my entire transition. That's how I found out about Candorful. That's how I found out about Hiring Our Heroes. That's why I came to McKinstry. It's an endless community of giving and wealth. So I'd say that's probably what it was for me.
Awesome. That's great. What about you, Cameron?
Yeah, I think Whitney nailed it. It's mentorship and networking. I mean, I think that's the best thing for us. It's I was able to talk to people who have been through the same process or have similar experiences, see how they went about the transition, kind of help me build confidence and build my own stepping stones for how I'm going to tackle this. But I also did participate in Candorful and got to do the mock interviews, and they helped me kind of refine those skills. But mentorship and networking is number one.
Awesome. That's what I found too. People helping me along the way, and then just getting out there and finding out, just like we said, practicing. Networking is kind of like practicing, telling your story, seeing where you could fit, figuring out that, hey, I have a lot more to offer than, if I just look at thinking what I used to do. I can fit in here. I have some value to bring. So that's awesome. And Monica, I would say, like, what do you see as the most effective at helping veterans and spouses transition into meaningful employment? What do you think the most effective programs are? Is it the networking and the mentoring? Is that what you would say?
I'll give you three. I think it's the
Okay.
networking, it's mentoring, it's the informational interviews, because you're building your network along all of those. And every time I have scheduled someone informational, I said, make sure you end it with, who else should I talk to? Everybody knows somebody. And this veteran community is so willing to help each other. So, and I also try to figure out who's that ERG lead, in your case, the Veterans Alliance, because that's a good place to start. And those veterans are always willing to help. So I would say those are my top three.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm gonna kind of that's what I found too. I'm gonna kind of move on, I think, to we've got a couple of audience questions, and I'm gonna ask John Livingston to come back in. And we've had a few Q&A questions come in, and it'd be great to have him come in before I kind of finish this up with a last kind of question for everybody. So John, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So the first question from our audience here in the Q&A is, can you put yourself in the shoes of a manager of a veteran that is transitioning into the civilian workforce? What are three things that we can do as managers to make that transition better or easier?
Anybody want to take that?
I
Go,
was gonna
Whitney.
say, I got a couple ideas. So, coming out, and then also being a manager now at McKinstry, I think the biggest thing is understanding the clearest form of communication with your service member. So if it's, preferred to be via email or to be told directly, we're used to very clear lines of communication. And so when things are like, yeah, maybe, and it's kind of muddled or not super clear. Sometimes we don't really know how to handle like a much more laid back environment. So establishing a clear form of communication and then using that to set priorities and timelines. A lot of vets are used to being told something needs to be done, and then you immediately jump on that, and you do it until it gets done. That's very much the mentality. And so being able to say, this isn't due until the end of the week, and now they know that they have time to get it done. Or saying, this doesn't have to be, or like, this should be your top priority right now. That way they know that everything else they can kind of push off, and that is the main focus. So coming from the mindset of how they were trained to the mindset of not everything is a must-do emergency, I would say those are three things you could employ that would be extremely helpful to managing newly transitioned vets. And even, I mean, now, like I said, 18 months out, I still like to know what the priorities are for my manager, because that's how I was trained and how I still continue to operate.
That's all.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, let's make sure, I would say just make sure we acknowledge the challenges of transition, like understand that transitioning from the military to a civilian role comes with a lot of unique challenges. So like adjusting to your new norms or finding a sense of purpose in a non-military role. So just having a sense of just empathy and just understanding, and then mentorship, again, can't harp on it enough, but just make sure we're providing them mentorship opportunities, pairing them with veterans. And yeah, I think Whitney hit on another big one. So
Thanks, Cameron. What about you, Monica?
There is a great database. It's called Psych Armor. And so if you're a manager that does not have military core competencies, it is a great place for managers to understand. I've worked with a lot of educators because veterans in college, they couldn't figure out why they always sit in the way back, and they always sit so they can see the door. And so, there are things that some of you have just been doing, but it's a great website. So if you don't have a lot of veteran core competencies, it's called Psych Armor.
Thanks. Appreciate that. This is lots of great information, and hopefully this helps the people that are asking the questions or had that question. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I mean, it's kind of like a tip of an iceberg. Like, we all have ideas, and being constantly curious and bringing the question up to the Veterans Alliance, or like we had Jesse Sycuro on this in the beginning. You know, like reaching out, we're a pretty open company for communication, right there. Like we talked about, the chain of command is I can email pretty much anybody. I will even email Dean if I need to. But I'd love to have those conversations with people, or if he wants to email me and talk about veterans, we can do that. But I think just being constantly curious as a manager and being able to better understand and support our veterans is, you know, I mean, if you have questions, we're here. You know, come talk to us. You know, we're ready and willing to answer those questions. We also have an upstander toolkit at McKinstry that talks about some of veterans experiences. And if you want to kind of just have that, you can find it on our Veterans Alliance website. There's a link there for you to take a look at it. So thanks so much for those questions. John, thanks for the question. I think, you know, we're getting towards the end here. We've got a few minutes left as we're getting towards the end. I guess I would just ask, you know, like, I think I want to move on to the next thing that I'd like to ask, which would be, what was your most rewarding experience from the military? And that, I guess that would go to Whitney first here.
Yeah, so my most rewarding experience, I think, was the legacy that I really felt that I got to leave behind. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I was one of the first service members in my family to serve. I didn't really take like an easy path through the military. My path was full of a lot of firsts. So like I said, one of the first women to be on submarines, one of the first to earn my dolphins. And where a lot of that came with a lot of reward, it also came with a lot of challenge and a lot of adversary. There's a word there that I'm trying. Adversity. Thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
Just based off of biases within the communities I was in and things like that. And so really where that was the most rewarding and the most challenging, that's one of the most rewarding things for me about McKinstry is coming into a culture of such acceptance, where I kind of had to beat down the door a little bit during my military career. So
Cameron, what about you? What was your most rewarding experience from the military?
Yeah, mine would have to be the people, you know. I had the privilege to like lead soldiers in the Army as an officer, and that was probably the most rewarding experience I had, you know, the chance to lead these teams and witness their growth. And I was fortunate to be part of a very close-knit group of people, and we were able to overcome adversity together and have a lot of shared challenges. And it taught me the power of like shared camaraderie. Sorry. Yeah, I'm still in touch with all those people today, and that's probably the most rewarding thing.
That's awesome. Well, we're getting close here at the end. I just want to say thank you. You know, I just want to say thank you. This has been great to have this conversation, to talk about veterans transitioning to McKinstry. Monica, I can't thank you enough for being here today and for your involvement with the number of veterans that you impact through the work that you do, the volunteering that you do. It's awe-inspiring. And so I just want to say thank you for that from my heart. I know McKinstry does too. We appreciate the work that you do for veterans and their families out there. It's great to have you here for this. If we could also say that, I just want to say thank you to the veterans at McKinstry, or thank a veteran while you're walking around over the next week. Veterans Day is coming up on Monday, and you know, it was a privilege for me to serve and an honor to serve. And you know, when somebody says, "Hey, thanks for your service," I say, you know, it was an honor. It was a privilege. I really felt like it was because of the things that Whitney had mentioned, Cameron had mentioned, and just to be able to do it and serve our country. You have an opportunity over the next week or so. We have some great events coming up here over the next week to kind of celebrate Veterans Day. You can participate in a Building Good event where we are going to make paracord bracelets and kind of get those out to veterans, active duty members and their families. We'll make them, you can sign up on the Building Good website. You can make those in a room with some teammates, and they'll get shipped out to Operation Gratitude, where they'll distribute them. So that's a great way to get involved. There's also a virtual building good event you can participate in. And really, you know, if you want to go out and do something for Veterans Day or think about a veteran over the month of November, you know, if these aren't necessarily working into your schedule or convenient, you know, do something that supports the veterans in your area, or it has an impact in that way. You can learn more about the McKinstry Alliance, McKinstry Alliances on the website on BlueNet. But you know, and specifically the Veterans Alliance, you can go there. Send me an email if you'd like to join the Veterans Alliance. I'd love that. And you know, consider leveraging the Hiring Our Heroes program for future open roles on your team. You know, contact Isaac Phones if you would like to do that. And you know, I just say that we're lifelong learners. We have a bunch of skills that, like we said, is, you know, sometimes it's hard to decipher what they did off of a resume into how they would support your team. So please reach out to people in Veterans Alliance. We can talk to you about how those people could help your business grow and value. And just, you know, thank you to the veterans, and thank you to everybody on this call. Yeah, appreciate it. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. Thank you for your service.